We'll go ahead and get started. I was trying to give a few minutes to make sure everyone could get logged on, but we are happy to have Les with us this morning. She's going to give us a little introduction, and then I'll kind of go over the all the rules we already all are very familiar with on Zoom, and then Tracy will take it away. So good morning, Les.
Good morning, everyone. If you don't know who I am, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the JRCERT. I want to welcome you to our first ever town hall, site visitor town hall. I have some very important people on this call, and I'd like to introduce them. You probably know Tracy Lang, our Executive Associate Director. Give a shout out, Trace.
Good morning. So glad to see so many familiar faces and names.
Jennifer Michael, our Assistant Director.
Good morning. My name says ask questions here, but yes, I am Jennifer also today.
Krista Lambert and Kathy Guerrero are accreditation specialists with us today.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Tricia Leggett, Director of Instructional Design. She's the one responsible for developing all of our modules on the learning management system.
Morning, everyone. Great to see you.
You all know Janet Merzen, Accreditation Service Coordinator.
I know. Look at the laughs, the smile, and I see you, Charlie. I know you all know, you hear from me over and over and over again. Yes, it's me again. Thank you so much for all that you do. We really, really, truly appreciate all the hard work you put in for us.
Accreditation Service Assistant, Megan Cruz.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. So good to see everybody.
Our Administrative Assistant, Janet Luzak, Tara Steele, and Joanne Sauter.
Morning, everybody.
Now you guys. On behalf of the board and staff, we want to thank you all for your dedication and commitment to the JRCRT. We are still currently at about 700 plus accredited programs. We're going to be extremely busy in 2023, and you're going to be extremely busy in 2023 because we have about 122 site visits to do this year. So it's going to be a busy year. Just so you know, as of September 2022, we no longer provide the waiver for distance education. So if you're on site and they've identified distance education without approval, it's obviously a non-compliance issue. So that's all I have, unless someone has some questions for me this morning. Nothing? No one? I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. Have fun. Enjoy it.
Thank you, Les.
Thank you, Leslie.
Go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Too early for verbal questions, I guess, this morning. So
I guess so.
And it's, if anyone's not Eastern or Central time, it's even earlier for you folks. So good for you. Yeah, James, it's real early in your neck of the woods. So yeah, I will be just the moderator for this today. So as we cover information, feel free to just go ahead and chat the questions that you have to me, so you don't have to remember them. And I'll fish them to, feed them to Tracy when she needs a break. And, if you could keep yourselves muted, it just helps with any kind of background noise and distracting others. I know sometimes my internet works better when my camera's off, so certainly feel free to turn it off if that's the situation that you're in. This is really just an informational group meeting for all of you to just update you on a few changes that we have and go over a few reminders, and then have an opportunity for you all to ask questions that maybe the rest of you don't know you need to ask. So it's always good to hear other people's questions when it comes to site visits and things like that. We won't take any breaks or anything because assuming this will go pretty quickly, less than an hour. So I think that's all I have. Certainly feel free to send anything my way, and I will stop us if we need to. So thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Jennifer. And one more staff member is on here, Brian Leonard. Where are you, B?
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Oh, there he is.
I'm the forgotten accreditation specialist. It's really great to see everyone's faces this morning. Happy New Year, y'all, and thanks for all you do.
Thanks, B. Definitely not a forgotten accreditation specialist. Probably just so many folks on here. It's hard to see everyone. Okay, so most of you know me. I am Tracy, and I'm the Executive Associate Director here at the JRCERT. I'll have 11-year anniversary coming up in a few months. So I've worked at a lot of places, but I think that's the longest I've worked at a single place. So kind of exciting for me. Also, Jennifer is the Assistant Director as we're starting to work into making sure that there's coverage in all the areas. Jennifer is also working into learning the site visitor process, which is great because I was off almost the entire month of December. And so it was really great to have someone to step in, and I'm still digging out of some emails, but not all of them since I had some help there. Okay. I'm not going to give you death by PowerPoint, I promise. All right, so our mission statement hasn't changed. We do promote excellence in education and elevate the quality and safety of care through the accreditation of educational programs in radiography, radiation therapy, magnetic resonance, and medical dosimetry. We work on strategic planning, and in April, we're going to be doing a complete review of our strategic plan. I don't anticipate that our mission statement will change, but it is something that we will look at. So any feedback from you guys on that would definitely be appreciated. We have updated our core values, and so we have added one that addresses diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are key to the organization and our accreditation work that we perform, but we also believe that these practices need to be at the forefront of our communities of interest, and that would include our site visit team as well. We've also revised our commitment to quality statement, and this statement is now being read at the opening session and the exit summation of the JRCERT site visit. It has been updated on the paper copies that you have under the site visitor resources on our website. So if you notice, it's been revised to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into the organization, our programs, and site visitor process. So our commitment to quality: we are committed to excellence in education and believe that quality cannot be compromised. Integrity and high ethical principles are the fundamental values that guide the JRCERT in assuring a fair and unbiased accreditation process. Our site visitors value the diversity of our programs and safeguard the education of students by verifying that programs utilize equitable policies and procedures. The JRCERT remains steadfast in assuring that these core values are reflected throughout the site visit. So this one really is specific to the site visit team in that you're upholding these core values that we have as an organization. So our board of directors, they'll look a little bit different after the April board meeting. This is the executive committee, and these members are Dr. Julie Lastly. She is the program director for the radiation therapy program at Northern Kentucky University. April will be her last board meeting, so we'll have a new chair after the April board meeting. Dr. Tracy Herman is the first vice chair, and she's employed at the University of Cincinnati Blue Ash. The second vice chair is Dr. Masa Dagampour. She's the medical dosimetry program director at MD Anderson. And then our secretary treasurer is Dr. Chad Hensley, and he's employed at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And our other board members, here we have Dr. Leisha Schmidt. She is the program director at Pima Medical Institute in California. April is also her last board meeting, but we will not be replacing that position. Several years ago, we changed policy and made it to where we could have up to 10 board members. We're going to go back down to 9 board members when Dr. Lisa Schmidt rotates off. We also have Dr. Kay Fleming. She's employed by the Columbia State Community College in Tennessee. Ms. Meredith Brown is employed by McLennan Community College in Waco, Texas. Ms. Judy Wood is an administrator at Stanford Healthcare in California. Dr. Melissa Davis is a radiologist employed at Emory University in Atlanta. And Mrs. Karen Freeberg is a retired professor of nursing from Elgin Community College. We are required to have one public member on our board of directors. And so that is Ms. Karen Freeberg is our public member. Some faces that we all know and love. Here are our professional staff members. We have Miss Leslie Winter, and she has been with the organization for over 25 years. A huge asset to our organization and a great leader and mentor for all of us. Me, I've been here for 11 years and working to move into some mentorship roles and being a better leader for the organization and for our site visitors and our site visitor process. Dr. Jennifer Michael, she is our assistant director, and she's also working with me in that role for the site visitors. And when we have Dr. Tricia Leggett, she's the Director of Instructional Design and Technology. If you've not had a chance to check out our link and her hard work, we encourage you to do so. We do have some free modules out there that we'll talk about. We have Brian Leonard. He's one of our accreditation specialists who is not forgotten. Crystal Lambert and Kathy Guerrero. These are our newest accreditation specialists. Krista started at the end of October and Kathy started on Monday. So trial by fire, sink or swim, here we go. Then we also have Jason Malcarrick and Tim Ebram. These are our accreditation assistants who bring enormous knowledge to our organization as well. Our administrative staff members, Ms. Teresa Cruz, she's our finance manager. She's been here for over 40 years. She is who you will hear from for those, not the evaluations, you'll hear from Megan for the evaluations, but for your expense vouchers. So she likes to have those in really timely so we can get everything wrapped up and get you guys reimbursed. Next, we have Angie Malcarrick. She's our senior executive assistant, and she's been here for 27 years, long time. Paul Lunn is our IT administrator and Tanner Caldwell is our IT support specialist. These two guys have worked really hard to try and have a seamless transition with our new AMS system. If you're having any issues, those are the people to talk to. Janet Merson is our accreditation services coordinator and Megan Cruz is the accreditation services assistant. We're excited as she moves into that role this year to try and help Janet out some and start to learn all of that entire process. So congratulations, Megan. Joanne Sauter is one of our administrative assistants, and she also does all of our graphic design and layouts for things on our website, mostly in our publications that we do. Janet Luzak is another of our administrative assistants, and she assists in the coordination of our professional development events. Ms. Lisa Mirabali is also an administrative assistant, and we have a new administrative assistant, and that's Ms. Tara Steele. So welcome to her. Some things that have been going on here at the JRCERT, our website was recently revised and it's looking great. With the team that we have a website team and they are just quick and on the ball. And so it's looking really good. And we're really excited to have something that we can manipulate ourselves and keep current and up to date. We also have lots of information on our website, so please make sure that you check it regularly. Also, the AMS portal has been revised and I will show you some of that in just a few minutes. The Link Learning Management System also has a few more courses for continuing education credits, which now includes conducting a JRCERT site visit, which ASRT has approved for 3.5 CEs. So that's always exciting that we can offer it. It's a dual purpose. The course, in addition to 3 other ones, are now housed as a learning plan that will take the place of site visitor workshops. We're not getting rid of the in-person workshops. It's just that we have fewer opportunities to see everyone over the last few years. So we wanted to be sure that we had a secondary plan in place. And some folks really enjoy online learning as opposed to in-person. So at least we have options now for both avenues. And if funds are limited at your sponsoring institution, or if you can't get away, it's a great alternative to go ahead and get those CEs that are needed and to update and refresh yourself on our policies and procedures. Additionally, experienced site visitors, whether you're an apprentice, a team member, or a team chair, you can be enrolled in these learning plans to update your professional development as a site visitor. Or if you just need CEs, give Trish a call and we'll put you in there. If you're a new site visitor, you will automatically be enrolled in this learning plan within the next couple of weeks. And we're doing that to try and give more background information as you come in as a site visitor. There's also about 6 free courses that you can review for free, and you can share that with your students or your clinical preceptors and staff. And fingers crossed that this will work. I think I have to pull it over to this screen because I'm presenting. Can everyone see it? Sorry, I can't see you guys. Is it there? Can you see the link?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So here are some of those free courses. Turning challenging conversations into successful collaborations, information for potential site visitors, improving work habits, providing performance feedback, healthcare edition, developing performance goals and standards, and supporting change, healthcare edition. So it could be something that you work in for students or just even for staff as part of a staff meeting. The turning challenging conversations into successful collaborations, I think, is a really good option that we have as well there. So a couple of freebies for you out there. If you have troubles logging in, you can just put that, you need help, and it should send you a link to reset. If you do it too many times, I think it's more than 3 times in a row, and it's in your spam mail and you don't see it, it'll lock the system. And so then you'll have to contact either Trish or Tim and they'll get the system unlocked for you. I'd say the most exciting news we've had over the last 1.5 to 2 years is that we did receive the maximum recognition of 5 years from the U.S. Department of Education this past February. Leslie and Dr. Lastly presented this virtually to NASICI, which is the National Advisory Committee on Institutional Quality and Integrity, at the Winter 2022 meeting in February. We are currently starting to prepare for our CHIA recognition, which is due in December of this year. So as far as policy changes, there are a couple of changes that were implemented since our last board meeting. Since we're starting to go back to kind of a new norm following the pandemic, the distance education that's been in effect during the pandemic, it went away September 1st, 2022. So when you're on a site visit, if the program is offering 4 or more didactic courses via distance or hybrid delivery, that program will be in non-compliance because they need to submit a substantive change request. And if the program is implementing 100% of the didactic courses via distance education, then a site visit is required per policy. And so then they would be required to submit a self-study and undergo an on-site evaluation. So some of our DE site visitors, a couple of you are going to be going out, maybe a little more this year, because we have had several programs that are switching to 100% option online. Not necessarily that they are going to be doing it, but they want to have it as an option, or they're going to be broadcasting to another area or campus. Additionally, medical dosimetry programs, this is a new option that the board of directors have implemented. If they wish to offer more than 50% of their total clinical clock hours online, then that is a substantive change. For those not in medical dosimetry, just a brief background. During the pandemic and even now post-pandemic, medical dosimetry has really turned into more of a virtual world type of job. And so the majority of medical dosimetrists are working remotely. And so to accommodate that, we needed to be a little more innovative with how we were looking at how are medical dosimetry programs allowed to deliver their clinical education. And finally, the Department of Education changed the compliance timeframes, or the timeframes that programs are allowed to come into compliance with the standards. For programs that are 2 years or more in length, that maximum compliance timeframe is now 36 months. The board of directors do not automatically always go to 36 months. That is at the discretion of the board of directors. So if you see some programs that are only on a 24-month time frame, compliance time frame versus a 36-month compliance time frame, realize that 36 is the maximum, but the directors do have the option to only, go to 24 months if they feel that the program should be able to come in compliance within that time frame. For programs that are less than 23 months, the compliance time frame is 18 months. That one did not change. So some site visitor updates, the site visitor policies have changed. We're no longer doing annual reappointments. We've been doing it that way for a while. We're still working on a way to streamline that process a little more. As we work with 3 different systems, they don't always talk to each other. So there's that manual piece that we're putting them all together. So we're still looking for and have in mind, what is the best, type of software that we could use for that. And one day we'll find it. But until then, we'll just keep reviewing them on an ongoing basis. Including promotions to team member and team chair. We are actually changing that process a little bit. We'll start doing promotions twice a year. Typically, we only do them at the end of the year. We gather all of the site visit information and start working on them in January. Now we'll do them every 6 months. And so that way we can look to see who's going on site visits and who can we promote if they have the appropriate evaluations. Policy 9300. It identifies the minimum requirements to be considered as a site visitor, in addition to progressing from apprentice to team member to team chair. Policy does allow an apprentice or team member to progress with a minimum of 2 site visits with a satisfactory performance evaluation. So we feel like we're able to work some individuals up from apprentice to team member a little quicker. Policy mandates that site visitors must attend a site visitor workshop either face-to-face or online once every 3 years. And this refers back to that new learning plan that's been developed for individuals who may want to complete this professional development via asynchronous learning. As stated before, policies and standards changes and the workshops provide an avenue to remain current on these changes in the JRC. Site visitors will also receive an annual evaluation. These are currently being tabulated. Again, we just pulled those from last year, and then we'll share them with you in the near future. You'll also notice that your evaluation will be compiled if you've done more than 1 site visit in the past year, but there's also an aggregate score for your comparable group, either team chair or team member and apprentice. And should you need some remediation in any area, you'll be contacted by either Jennifer or myself to discuss it. If we have had any issues on site visits, typically I go ahead and reach out to the team members to try and understand what any of those issues may have been. On occasion, we do get some really low scores from the programs. And I generally wait until after I have all of the information, the post-site visit process, evaluation from the site visitors and the program before I approach some of those. Nonetheless, if I've called you individually, then it's just to try and understand maybe why some evaluation scores were the way they were. We are now doing e-payments through bill.com, which is a product of Chase. And so we're reimbursing site visitors using electronic payments, and most of you are already using it. The key to success with that one is wait till you get the email from Teresa. Even if we've paid you with it before, I think you have to use the link that she sends you. And so I think just wait until you hear something from Teresa and all will be successful. You're still required to submit those expense vouchers and any receipts for reimbursement. Teresa Cruz, our finance manager, sends you that email when the funds are to be dispersed, and then that tells you how to set up your account. Or if you already have an account, then that tells you how to go to that particular transaction. I'm not the best person to ask on this because I only use it whenever she has to send me money. Payments or websites are processed using end-to-end encryption, which really is much safer than paper checks, and it's timelier too because we don't have to mail it to you. So it really is a quick turnaround process. The one thing to keep in mind is that those vouchers should be sent to mail@jrcert.org. So even on the electronic RSVTF, there's an option now to upload forms. And I think some of you guys were super excited and said, yes, I'll send it there. And we only want things related to the site visit when you're on site uploaded into that document. So these still have to be paper mailed into Teresa, emailed that is. Unfortunately, our auditors will not let us reimburse alcohol. So just know that you would have to, we will deduct that from any meals that you've purchased that we're reimbursing you for. And then the use of a rental car, it would have to be placed on the site visitor's credit card if the program is not paying for it. Just be sure that you always purchase the insurance with it, because it just makes it so much easier in the unfortunate event that anything would happen. You will be immediately reimbursed after submitting your expense voucher and receipts. And then you'll also be reimbursed for tips up to 20%. I know we've all been probably super generous during the pandemic. You know, we're thankful for our food service workers and what have you, but only up to 20%. Anything over 20%, usually the first time I'll throw you an email saying, hey, we appreciate you being super generous. We'll reimburse at this time, but no more. So 20%, there's our cap. Also, the RSVTF is now required to be submitted within 7 days through the AMS portal. The expense vouchers and your receipts need to be submitted within 14 days. And again, that goes to mail@jrcert.org. And your peer evaluation will be completed via that SurveyMonkey link that we send you. And we don't reimburse until we know that you filled out that survey. Okay. We would ask that you log into your site visitor. I don't know what happened there. Okay. If you would take the time to log into your information portal page through the AMS and just verify that your information is correct. If you've moved, or if you have new phone numbers, or if you need to change your beneficiary designated person, you can do it on that page. So please be sure that we have correct phone numbers and emails. For distance education experience, many of you do have distance education experience post-pandemic. Before you change that though, we'd like to be sure that you either have, you're working with it the majority of the time, and what type of education. It's not just that you were able to do your classes via Zoom. So contact me if you have any questions on that. And also for practitioner, if either you as a program director or dean or clinical coordinator are in that clinical setting at least 8 hours a week, then we would consider that a practitioner as well. As Les had discussed, we have a lot of site visits coming up this year. We did get behind a little bit during the pandemic, but we're mostly caught up now. But we still have some issues due to travel restrictions or localized restrictions in some areas of the country. That's why we're still sending out the COVID-19 information forms. A lot of programs will question, do we have to do this because, our academic institution isn't under a mask mandate? And we just let them know that's for informational purposes in the event anything changes. They made it sound like it was going to be the flu vids, whatever was going to happen, this fall. And so far, it seems to be progressing well and not slowing down the site visit process.
Tracy, do you want to take a break and answer a couple questions?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay, one is asking if you could re-explain the 4 or more hybrid or online courses. They were thinking, does that mean they have to have an additional site visit if they have more than 4 or more courses?
For 4 or more, no, it does not require a site visit. And in that 4 or more, we also have a policy that defines distance education. And that means greater than 50% of that individual course has to be offered not face-to-face. So be it asynchronous, synchronous, the Department of Education doesn't differentiate between those two. They just look at it, if you're not face-to-face, greater than 50% of the time, then that is a distance education course or a hybrid course. So if the program has more than 4 of those, then we have to recognize them as a distance education program. A site visit would be required if the program switches all of their didactic courses to that definition of DE, greater than 50%, no longer face-to-face. Whether they come into the on campus once a week and then other 3 days of the week they're remote, then chances are that's still going to be distance education, depending on that, how you distribute that time frame. So only if 100% would we expedite the continuing accreditation process. Did that clarify that for who asked the question?
I think so.
Perfect.
And then I have another question. I think you might have used the word voucher. So are vouchers the same thing as receipts?
Yes, we call it an expense voucher. And so you fill out the expense voucher and then you have to have the receipt associated with that on the expense voucher form.
Right.
Yes. And be sure that it has the itemized, not just, that final bill that they send you at the end and you just sign it and that's the one you take. Be sure you have the itemized bill. Teresa, for our accounting purposes, really needs that itemized bill that shows everything, the breakdown of everything.
Is a site visitor required to be a practitioner?
No, a site visitor is not required to be a practitioner. For not our hospital-based, for our university-based programs, we're required to have a practitioner on every site visit. And so practitioners, it's hard to get individuals that are involved in that clinical setting environment or that are truly practitioners, performing patient care every day to be a site visitor, because one, there's a shortage right now, but two, it also pulls them away from their normal daily routine. So unless they're in an institution of research and higher learning that really supports that, it's really hard for them to get that time off from their employer. And so that's why we've had to look at what are some different definitions of practitioner. So no, a site visitor is not required to be a practitioner. However, we are required to have a practitioner on every site visit.
I have a couple that have asked about when they would be scheduled for their first site visit. They are newly approved apprentices.
So if you're newly approved and you've not yet done your introductory education and attended your first site visit, we will not schedule you until that's been completed. If that has been completed, then Janet and Megan will be working on getting you scheduled for a site visit. If you are ready to go now, just drop us an email and Janet will put you on her radar and try and pair you up appropriately when she has one available for you.
Okay, and then we're getting some information that I'm going to follow up on while Tracy continues. It looks like in the portal, it used to let people know when their next site visitor workshop was due, but I'm getting information that that is no longer available to them. And also that someone tried to update the site visitor information and they were unable to do so because there was no edit button. So I will follow up on those with IT and get you guys an answer to those. Deb Pulhos, she has a question about the information that we receive for upcoming site visits. So Deb, if you want to unmute yourself and ask that question.
Sure, Jennifer. Okay, so here's my question. Since I did so many last year and I have a couple already scheduled, we receive a lot of documents in the portal for the upcoming site visit that we're going to be doing. And generally, I'm well aware that when we go on site, we are looking at the standards based on their last award till present time. But where I'm having difficulty is if a program has had an 8-year award and then at the interim report gets reduced, we get a copy of the letter that they received saying they've been reduced and the standards that cause that, but we don't know what really changed from the 8-year to the reduction at the interim report. So I'm finding it difficult, even though I know I'm looking at it from the interim report to present, to determine what they didn't do or what they did differently that caused that reduction. So is there a reason that we don't receive the interim report with all the documentation that we get?
I would say probably you don't receive it, Deb, is because even for self-studies, we don't provide it, the previous self-study report in and of itself. That is a good point because, obviously we found it to be lacking in some way, shape, or form. So perhaps there's something that we can look at that can give a little more information for you. Typically, not always, but I'll go out there on a limb and say the majority of the time it has to do with either the assessment process, the meeting minutes, somewhere in standard 6 that they've not continued on throughout the 4 years, performing what they should be performing. And so I can see why you would say it would be hard to determine what did they not do well in the interim report versus what am I evaluating at the time of the site visit. So let us brainstorm a little bit on that one and see. I don't know that we would put the whole interim report out there because those can get kind of wild and wacky sometimes. And I say it that way, not ugly, but just that a lot of times the documents that you're looking for are in a different objective. And so you have to look at that as a whole document, the entire interim report, as opposed to individual objectives. Let us brainstorm on that and see what we can do, Deb, to see if there's, something that we can provide that gives a little more detail or information.
Okay.
And I think definitely working with your professional staff member, they should be able to give you a little more historical value on that. But say Jennifer reviewed it at the interim report, they reduced, and I'm reviewing it now, you may not get as much of that historical value. So I'll put that on a list for us to kind of brainstorm and talk about.
Okay, thanks, Tracy.
Sure thing. Sorry, I'm making a quick note.
While you make that note, Tracy, I am on the phone with Tanner, one of our IT guys, and the site visitor information page is editable. You are not able to edit your business address because it's tied to your program that you're associated with, but you are able to edit your personal address, your closest airport, your spoken languages, and things like that. So just make sure when you go to that information, you can make edits to it and then hit save and close, and it will save that information for you. And on that same page should be the site visitor workshop due date, which it won't be same format coming up, but it will have a due date displayed under your site visitor information.
So that one is there. I can scratch through that one.
Yes.
Perfect.
And we're getting feedback from a site visitor in the chat that they updated theirs today with no problem. So should be good to go. If you run into issues, Tanner Caldwell is your man.
Yes. And I do know sometimes if they're working in the background and doing some things, it does take a little while. We had some initial hiccups, big hiccups, but hiccups nonetheless. And so if you tried it previously and it didn't work, I'd encourage you to log in and try it again. If it doesn't work with whatever browser you're using, you may want to try a different browser. It seems to like Chrome and Firefox, but Microsoft Edge likes to take over the world. And so if you're working in Edge and that's not working for you, try and switch to a different browser. Any other issues, definitely contact Tanner. We have the portal revision and helps video on the website, but then a lot of times I've actually gone and looked at it, a couple of them, but then I just have to call Tanner and say, help, I don't know what I'm doing here. And that's perfectly fine. We appreciate those questions because it allows him to think through, is there a way that we could do this a little more seamlessly? In the future, we would love an AMS portal section to put all of your evaluation results. That's if you can think of a big wish list of like, what would we get if we won the lottery? That's what we would get. But since we've not yet won the lottery, we're still gonna have to keep that as bottom of the list, but we'll keep asking. And we really would also like to build more site visitor resources in the LMS, and Tricia's worked really hard this past year to do that. If you need help with some of these, we do have lots of examples and resources for you guys out there. And a lot of times I think you're directing programs to it. So just be sure that you're familiar with it so you can help those program directors maybe that aren't as familiar with assessment plans, or if they're meeting minutes or having issues, direct them to these. The majority of you do use these quite a bit. So just a quick mention on that one there. Hybrid site visits, we are still doing them. The Department of Education permitted the use of virtual site visits during the pandemic. However, we didn't feel that we had the resources to do virtual only visits, because then a follow-up visit is required in person on campus within 12 months. And as many site visits as we do, it just felt like it would be a scheduling nightmare, and that it's something that we wouldn't be able to manage. So we do have the hybrid site visit. And from feedback, I know some of you love them and some of you just would rather not even spend your time doing it. So it's interesting that there's such a, one extreme to the other. Nonetheless, one site visitor is on campus, the other one is remote. An agenda that is created by the team is sent into the office, and we create the Zoom Links account. You do have to use our site visitor Zoom account for that. The clinical settings do not need to be visited in person if there are site visitor restrictions, but otherwise we would want the one person on campus to go and visit those. You can do Zoom and or telephone interviews. We seem to be having a lot of that happening right now due to the shortage. A lot of clinical preceptors and clinical staff are unable to come to that scheduled meeting on campus during the site visit, and we are permitting that if they cannot get away, that it be done via telephone or Zoom, however you can get a hold of them. We realize that it does kind of turn the schedule upside down if you're not prepared for that. So those are some questions that we encourage you to communicate with the program director about ahead of time. Only because it is a little more laborious to call them as opposed to having one meeting with everyone all at once. And students can be interviewed via Zoom or telephone if there's campus restrictions in place, if they're distance learning students, that type of thing. However, students do have to be a part of the site visit process. There's still some sort of a disconnect, and I'm not sure why. The team will get on campus and they're like, well, we've only seen one cohort, the other cohort's not available. And we're really working on getting that information back out to the programs that know both cohorts have to be available to the site visit team. Here's that site visitor information page that Jennifer was talking about, that you just log in, update information for us there. The portal, the characters are capped at 3,000 characters per response. I can only maybe think of 2 objectives that this might be a little bit of a hindrance to the program. It's really nice if they could just be succinct and just give us the facts, Jack, so we can all move along. We have capped the PDF uploads to 15 per objective. And then professional staff do reserve the right to return the self-study back to the program to comply with these requirements, or if we feel that the self-study report just doesn't contain the information it should contain. I would say it happens a couple times a year that we'll send it back to the program and give them 3-4 weeks and say, try again, because you've not really answered these objectives appropriately. So if you guys do come across some of those and you feel like it's not a quality self-study report, please let either me or Jennifer know so we can kind of have a look at it and see the history and what's going on there. But we usually have no problem sending it back if we feel the information that's needed is not there. So as far as the on-site evaluation, a big reminder, just remember you're a guest at the program, just as your students are guests in their clinical settings, and appropriate behaviors, or monkey see, monkey do if they're wearing masks. Even if a mandate's not required, then we'll wear a mask, those type of things. And so you are a representative of the JRCERT, and we'd like you to present yourself accordingly. And also another issue we've had sometimes, when writing the report of site visit team findings, please include very specific examples if you could, whether it's a citation or not. It really helps professional staff when they're writing the report of findings, especially after the fact. Because sometimes we have up to 3 months to write this report. And if you're Deb House, we've already sent you on 4 different site visits. And so if we're writing the report and she's already been to 4 different programs, she's maybe not going to remember precisely what the issue was for this program. And maybe she just put, sorry, Deb, I'm gonna pick on you for a second. Maybe she just put the program does not follow the current curriculum. Honestly, Deb would never put that. She would tell us exactly, but that doesn't give us a lot of information, and it doesn't give the program a lot of information because now we're talking 3 months later, they don't know what they need to fix. And so this better example kind of provides that to them so that we can say students are not receiving sectional anatomy instruction. So then we know exactly what we're looking for. So does the program when they respond to it. And this also helps the board of directors, because if we just say they're not following the curriculum, we're kind of at a loss of, well, what needed to be fixed? What did we need to see different? Almost Deb's example from the interim report being reduced. What do we need to see that's changed? And then this one goes all the way into it to describe that they don't receive any introductory knowledge to sexual anatomy as defined in the currently approved curriculum, human structure and function section. And so this really gives a very specific outline of what didn't meet at the time of the on-site review. And so we know what to look for when the program responds to it. If that's something that you could work on, or a lot of you do that, but we just really need to be sure that we have that information so we can paint that picture of answering those questions of who, what, when, where, how, and why, so that when they respond to it, we know that it's fixed appropriately for those students in that program. Also, give kudos, please. Let us highlight some things that they're doing great in their program, so we can put that in the report of findings as well. A new thing that we've started doing with the new standards is that we have the site visit team check ARRT cards and affiliation agreements. Typically, it's just a spot check. It doesn't have to be for everyone. When I'm working with a program, a lot of times rule of thumb I'll tell them is the clinical settings that you go to, you need to see that affiliation agreement, and you need to see those current ARRT cards. So you definitely want to be sure that you're just spot checking those at the time of the visit. That changed from the 14 to the 2021 standards because we no longer have that laundry list of things in standard 6 that we used to check in-house. Those things are now in policy. Also, if the program's ARRT pass rate scores are on the cusp of not being in compliance, I would say if they're at 80% or below, you'll want to be sure to get a current printing of their ARRT scores while you're on site so that you can send that back to the JRC. Our annual reports, those are a year behind. And so it's hard for us to tell whether they're in compliance or not, but we'd rather put a program on a compliance timeframe at the time that the board of directors give them that award from the site visit, as opposed to waiting until the annual report the following year. Professional staff know to try and keep that on their radar for that pre-conference call, but in the event we forget, we'd like you to help remind us with that. And with that, we'll go to any more questions that anyone may have. Jen, do we have some more?
Yes, we sure do. Can you give us a little update about when programs can use Zoom meetings during a site visit?
Yes. So programs can use Zoom meetings with their account, not our account. We've had it where maybe the campus president had to be called because they have 2 campuses. Maybe he had to be called to the other campus and he still wants to be a part of that introductory meeting, and they have it all set up for you. That's appropriate and that's fine. For clinical preceptors or clinical staff to speak with them. Maybe you're visiting a radiation therapy program or a medical dosimetry program, and they have support from physics staff that are external to the program. Definitely appropriate then. Some of our programs have clinical settings that are greater than an hour away. So to communicate with them could be, telephone, Zoom, webinar, however, Teams, any of those would be options. Same for students. If we have some students, I like to pick on Michigan because in the wintertime in Michigan, some of their clinical settings are really far away. And it seems like it would be unreasonable for some of those students to travel to campus when you could do a virtual meeting with them, especially if there's, bad weather out. Inclement weather would also impact that. What other scenarios am I forgetting, Jen?
I can't think of anything. I think I
And-
covered it.
Right. And if ever you're not sure, call us, email, throw me a quick text. I have several site visitors who, maybe Jennifer is their professional staff, but if they're on site, they're like, hey, they're asking if I can do this. I'll respond immediately and say yes or no, unless it was the month of December. I've not responded to anything hardly from that month. So I've got to catch up. But, if ever you're not sure, just ask. And if it seems reasonable and not, I think sometimes you have to use a little professional judgment there, but if you're not sure, always ask. We're available and we're happy to help with that.
So a clarification on the distance learning courses again, if 51% of the course is an in-person lab and 49% is asynchronous didactic instruction, is that considered a distance learning course?
51% in person, we would not consider that a distance program, or we wouldn't consider that a distance education course. If 51% of it is in person, that does not meet the threshold of distance education per our policy.
And then do all students have to be present during site visit, or a few students on campus and the rest via Zoom is appropriate? Or
all students must be available. I'm not going to say they all have to be on campus, because again, we have some distance education students and that's the program they've signed up for. So it'd be appropriate for them to be available via DE. But they have to all be available and available to participate, I think is the best way to put that, whether it's on campus or through telephone. Some of our programs are ginormous and they have 100+ students. And so if you're doing interviews, that's really hard to schedule in-person interviews with 100+ students. I mean, you might get to 50 and say, okay, I've got a good feeling here. But those students need to realize in the program as well that that's the discretion of the team chair, the team member. Usually the team chair is the one who makes that call to say if they want to do it in person, if they want to do it over the phone, if they want to do individual interviews, or if they want to do group interviews. That really is at the discretion of the team. We try not to overstep that boundary, because I mean, you're the one who are on campus, you know what you need. I don't know what you need, back here behind the screen of a computer, but they do need to all be available.
those are all my questions. I apologize if you already mentioned this, Tracy, as I was, multitasking over here. Just a reminder to please have the program obtain their most recent ARRT score report for you while you're on site during the site visit, and those can be uploaded in the portal now as a document. So an electronic copy, if they just have, run it and email it to you, then you can electronically add it to the RSVTF before you hit the submit button. And I think that's it.
I'm trying to think of some things that have come up recently. Travel it's different. Travel is different. Flights are different. A lot of regional airports are no longer servicing from some areas. And an airport, I'm trying to remember if it's North Carolina, like either American or Delta didn't renew their contract with them. So they don't have Deb Polhouse. Where are you? It's your program. Yes. So there are no longer flights to that area. And so the only option is to drive in. So we realize that those things take a little longer, and we try to put that into account and take that into account when Jen is asking what site visitors may be available. Some of that may necessitate us having to use a virtual option or a hybrid option because it's really hard to try and get a team member or a chair there just based on where that program is located. Deb came up with a wonderful solution, and I think that, is he going to fly to you?
Pardon?
Is John going to fly to you or no?
No, somebody else is coming with us. So
okay. We had put it out there to say, she said, well, they can come fly to my house and we'll drive down there together. So, we're kind of doing planes, trains, and automobiles for some of these that are in remote areas. To get to South Dakota, generally it's a 1 full day of travel, two site visit days, and then another full day of travel Northern Idaho, for whatever reason, the airport to get there is the same way. So again, some of those we look at it and we can't find any takers other than one person. So we would then switch it to a hybrid visit if at all possible. So we're looking at that and trying to work with it as best we can, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see some things improve through the airline industry. United, the CEO, put a thing out yesterday. They're looking to hire, 15,000 new employees. They're getting a new line of planes. So hopefully we'll start to see those flight patterns, opening back up again.
So clarify what I asked for. Yes, so the most recent of the last 5 years, have them print out. So what would be either their most recent annual report or one that is coming up fairly quickly? We had one missed in the last few months, that if it were to have been obtained during the site visit, we would have realized about 6 months earlier that they were not meeting their ART scores. So yes, the most recent of the 5 years for their graduating classes. But certainly any questions that you come up, give us a call. Any one of us will answer your questions. The person that reviewed the self-study report obviously is the best person if you have specific questions about their self-study or their program. But if you just have questions about travel or things like that, you can contact the office and they'll get you the right person to talk to.
And I'll see, I'll put our site visit team together. Maybe we can come up with some FAQs based off some of the questions that were asked here and then get that out there for you guys. That might be helpful to do some FAQ stuff. Any other general questions? Or I know Jen had to maybe look at a few things. Sounds like she got it taken care of with Tanner.
Is it acceptable to publish 2022 program effectiveness data before the annual report is due? It is.
Yes.
So programs have to have on their website, at a minimum, they have to comply with what was due at the last annual report, but they can update it with more recent information before the next annual report is due. That's all. No more questions.
Okie dokie. We don't have this ready, but it'll be ready just so you guys know. For MR, screening protocol for our radiography programs and our therapy programs, we are developing a module and we'll release that information in April. We had it at our October standards committee that there's been some concern that, well, the radiography program director is not MR qualified. Where does that leave us? And so we're going to put a protocol out there, and that should help some of our radiography site visitors and our programs to understand what exactly we're looking for in relation to that screening protocol. And so that's coming out in April. So it'll probably be in the spring publication of the peer-to-peer. The winter publication of the peer-to-peer should be going out soon. So try to read those. If you're a new site visitor and you don't know what I'm talking about, head online at jrcert.org, and under site visitor resources, you can see a link to our newsletters for the site visitors, and you can read all of the old ones if you would like. And I always encourage you guys to read the spring Pulse newsletter, because that has all of our policy changes. There's a link in there and that goes to every policy change that the directors approve. And some of those do impact programs, or it impacts what we're looking for during a site visit. We're not trying to go over and take your day, because I could sit and talk with you guys all day today. So it's 10 o'clock. I don't have any other thing to do as far as a presentation, but staff are going to hang on and we'll be here for a little bit in case you have questions. Otherwise, email us anytime, text us, call the office, call us, and we're here to help you. So with that being said, thank you all so very much. You you are our representatives. You are the representative of the organization, and your dedication to education and reviewing programs and having quality products is so appreciated. Not just by us here at the JRC, but I think it's by all of the programs, because the majority of those programs do learn from you, and then you're able to learn and maybe take some things home from them as well. So we could not be successful without you, and you're so incredibly appreciated.
Very much. Thank you.
And Janet wants you all to retire so you can do site visits every day.
No, then they'll see that it's really fun to be retired and not want to do it. I know. That's cool.
I want to thank everyone giving this presentation. It's always good to get updates. And we always come up with new questions for you at every site visit, I'm sure.
You too, Mary Jo. Oh my goodness. We
Thank
appreciate
you all
it.
so much.